Hello, this is Kyla, and for my final interactive electronic art project, I decided to represent breathing rate through plant animations. So my inspiration, especially as a biomedical engineering major, I'm constantly inspired by human anatomy and our biological responses. So I kind of wanted to measure breathing rate and combine it with art representations through art and technology. So my other purpose of this project and this concept is to visualize breathing rate and also make the user more aware of their breathing and regulating the breathing, especially as someone who is anxious. So there are three main elements of this project. So there's an elastic sensor that I'm using to record breathing rate, to measure breathing rate, and then I'm also using computer camera vision and input to project this plant growing animation onto the user. So for my hardware elements, I'm using an Arduino, as well as a series of LEDs and potentiometers, and the elastic sensor. So for this elastic sensor, as it stretches, the resistance of it increases. So this way, if it's strapped around a person's chest, when they breathe in, it'll stretch and the resistance increases, and when they exhale, it'll shrink and the resistance will decrease. And we can use these values to then measure breathing rate. So for my hardware elements, I'm using these series of LEDs to just as a second visualization of breathing. So they'll light up when the sensor is stretched. These potentiometers are used to set the minimum and maximum values. And here in this photo, these black and red cords are connected to the elastic sensor. So this initial setup, I followed a tutorial by Science Buddies. So for my Arduino code, so essentially how this works, as I mentioned previously, this sensor changes in resistance. And so the input is connected to the analog pins of the Arduino. So as the sensor stretches, the resistance changes, and so therefore the voltage being read also changes. And so through that voltage read, we're able to measure the inhale, exhale, and resting rates. So to do this, I'm taking the last three readings and comparing them against the previous readings to see if they're increasing, decreasing, or resting. And based off of these values, we set these three different states. And then I'm using the serial monitor to print different numbers depending on which state it's in. So 1 for resting, 2 for inhale, and 3 for exhale. Using the serial monitor, we can then connect it with Max, so that way it can read the outputs from the Arduino. For my Max program, there are two main features. The first feature incorporates computer vision. So using cv.jit, I'm taking the camera input and using face tracking to find the coordinates and locate the face. So using the coordinates of the box, we're able to find the medium point of the camera window, which then can be used for scaling. So that way, my animations are scaled correctly to the face. And the camera input as well as the scaling information is sent to the video plane. The second aspect of my Max program is taking the output from the Arduino. So to connect the Arduino to Max, we're reading the serial monitor, the serial port that's connected to the Arduino. And as I mentioned previously, there are three different states that we're reading. So the first state is the resting state, the second state is the inhale state, and the third state is the exhale state. And depending on which state it's in, a different animation will play. So for example, for the resting state, it will play a transparent PNG, so that way there's no animation on screen, just the camera input. For the second state, the inhale state, I have a series of 12 images that I drew that it cycles through. And for my exhale, it will read the last image of the inhale, and from there it will go cycle count in reverse. That way it has a shrinking animation effect. So here I'm going to demonstrate my art project. So as you can see here, I have the elastic sensor strapped around my chest, as well as the 2 connections to the Arduino. And I have this bag strap that I am using to connect everything, so that way when I expand the chest, it'll actually stretch. So when I breathe in, the animation triggers. When I breathe out, the animation shrinks. And depending on my rate of breathing, the length of the animation changes. So faster breath, shorter animation, longer breath, longer animation. So as you can see, camera vision is definitely a little bit glitchy, like it varies a lot, and the sensor sometimes, for the most part, it actually does read the inhalation and exhalation pretty well, but sometimes it will skip an exhale. But overall, I'm really happy with how this project turned out. Definitely spent countless of hours trying to figure each element of the project out. I think doing the Arduino alone, probably spent like 10 hours on that. Some of the challenges I experienced with initially was with trying to get the sensor reading to trying to read the states of respiration from the sensor values correctly. Definitely took a lot of trial and error to get that analysis correct. And sometimes, and initially, it would happen a lot where the inhalation would be correct, but then the exhale would read too late in the cycle, and the exhale would already be done by the time exhale triggered. Some of the other difficulties I experienced with were just working with Macs. I think comes with challenges, lots of trial and error, trying to figure out the logic, trying to figure out the math. Definitely takes a lot of time. And I also spent a lot of time on the animation. As someone who doesn't really animate a lot, I think the last time I animated something was like 2 years ago. Took me quite some time, but overall I'm really happy with how this project worked out. I definitely learned a lot through the course of this entire course and this project especially. I've never worked with computer vision before, haven't worked with stretchy sensors before, and also connecting Arduino to the Macs, also not something I've done before. And overall, I'm really glad I took this course. I think it definitely challenged me in all the right ways and pushed me as an artist and engineer. Yeah, thank you so much for listening and watching this video. Please let me know if you have any questions.